Let me ask you the most important question you will ever be asked. Who is Jesus? Now, before you keep scrolling, let me ask you this question. Have you ever really thought about how the Gospels portray Jesus? We can sort of go on our lives and really not give much thought to this question, but think about the implications of this answer. If Jesus is God, then we should worship him. If he's just some guy, then we can ignore him. And if he was maybe a liar, then we can write him off and say, there have been plenty of people who have lied about who they are. In the Gospel of Mark, he gives a story of who Jesus is. See, some Muslims or atheists will push back and say, well, Jesus never claimed to be God. That's sort of a later idea that was introduced by Christians when they were trying to gain political power or something, or whatever the reasoning is. Well, the Gospel of Mark, the earliest gospel written, actually sort of shows us who Jesus is. He doesn't tell us. Like any good movie, the author here is conveying a point by showing, not telling. Mark chapter 1, John the Baptist is the prophet who prepares the way for God, fulfilling Isaiah 40, verse 3. Jesus. Mark 2, Jesus forgives the sins of the paralytic, and the Pharisees say, only God can forgive sins, which is Mark's point. Mark is using this story to illustrate who Jesus is. In Mark 3, Jesus says his exorcisms demonstrate he has bound Satan and is plundering his kingdom. This leaves the audience wondering, what human can bind Satan? Mark 4, Jesus calms the wind, something only God does in Psalm 89, 107, and Ecclesiastes 8. Mark 5, Jesus raises the dead, something only God does, Ecclesiastes 8. Others have raised the dead, but it was through prayer to God, whereas Jesus did it on his own authority. Mark 6, Jesus walks on water, something only God does. Job 9:8. Mark 9, Jesus casts out a demon after his disciples were unable, because that kind only comes by prayer to God, but Jesus didn't pray. Here's the point. Mark is painting a literary portrait of Jesus through what Jesus teaches and through his acts, that Jesus is God, no less than God in some sense. When we read the Gospels as they were meant to be read within their genre, we see the tools the Gospel writers used in order to paint a portrait in who Jesus was, that he was the Christ.